So again, kind of want to think about establishing self-efficacy because it's super important in all regards of our work. Is I'm super on top of communicating, building small wins. Like all the time, I'll see home exercise programs or very well-intentioned education be provided to folks where that's just like over the top for them. Like there's no way they're going to be able to comply to this. That they can hardly, get a vegetable or fruit in their day. They can hardly, motivate themselves to do more than get dressed and run errands for the day. And here we're going to ask them to do 30 minutes of exercise out of nowhere just because we said so. We got to help them build momentum instead of just thinking of these big grandeur changes. So small wins builds confidence. We got to help them with that. We got to help them see that they can make change. A lot of folks just don't have that agency, feeling like they actually have control over their lives. So instead of dumping all this like sleep hygiene checklists, or we want to co-create. We want to work as a team. We want to look at one step at a time, and we want to just make like little mini micro goals that are very accomplishable and be collaborative. So as an example, one that I'll often think about or talk about is say like, do you think it would be reasonable to turn your phone off 10 minutes before you go to bed? Typically I say all screens, but phone's a big one. And most folks can say, yeah, I could definitely do that. I was like, okay, pull your phone out right now. Let's set an alarm. What time do you usually go to bed? Around this hour? Okay, well, let's set an alarm for, 10, 15, 20 minutes before then to remind you, all right, phone goes down at this time. We go to bed 10 minutes later. And this is how we kind of get the momentum to make behaviors stick. So moving forward, a health psychology concept that I really like to kind of keep in mind and reflect on, and I use it all the time, particularly when there's just lack of follow through, or just really in general, because I just recognize that when it comes to behavior change, I tell folks all the time it's the hardest but also most rewarding aspect of my job. So I look at this COM-B framework. This looks at how does capability, opportunity, motivation work in favor or against behavior change for the individual, and vice versa. How do behaviors influence someone's capability, motivation, and opportunities? So, for instance, capability. Does someone have the knowledge or the skills to execute what you're asking of them? If you look at opportunity, does this person are they in an environment that can actually support the change we're looking after? Are they feeling motivated enough? So if we look at the barriers for the individual, that's where we can build strategy and tact in regard to behavior change. So I feel like in today's day and age where we have AI and, before that, and still very relevant, Google search, right? We can get all sorts of generic information and tips and strategies and this and that. And we get inundated with this. So a lot of folks become numb to it. It just becomes empty words or, future opportunities to kind of just fail again. Just another one of those. So I feel like sometimes we can kind of like all this sleep hygiene stuff can kind of get a bad rap, especially if we're just providing generic handouts like a brochure or something. So I feel like just like most things, and it makes sense to me, when we personalize it and we ask these questions, we screen it, and derive, again, curious questions from the screenings, we can match a patient's like routines and triggers to our plan, and it becomes that much more powerful because it's tailored to that person. They feel heard, and it's made for them versus, AI or Dr. Google telling them what's going on. And, things like for chronic pain, we emphasize consistency over perfection. For anxiety folks, we want to emphasize wind down rituals, for instance, when we think about getting like prepared for sleep, what have you, and looking at altering these perceptions of sleep hygiene. And then, lastly on this coaching for behavior change slide, just validating that what someone's experiencing is normal. A lot of patients might feel guilty about their bad sleep habits. You know, we might ask about it and they're like, yeah, I know, I shouldn't keep the TV on when I'm trying to go to sleep, and while I'm sleeping, I know it's a bad habit, and it's probably not helpful for my recovery from surgery. And so it's like, well, where that may be true, like, let's, again, it's like, you know, this person's brain is kind of just doing what it feels like it needs to distract itself to wind down to get to sleep. It's trying to do the best it can. So just kind of acknowledge, like, you know, you're trying to figure things out. And it's great that you recognize that it may not be the most optimal. And now that we have this opportunity to work together to make it better. So I appreciate you bringing that up to me. So let's learn how to do this better together and in a way that works best for you. And that's going to be so much more powerful again than handing a brochure or just saying like, yeah, you're right, that is a pretty awful habit. You know, maybe don't do that. You know, we can do better.